And do you remember the Sportatorium? Yeehaw! It still exists. Yes, sir. This is where many a sweaty fucking concerts were. Yes, remember playing frisbee in these fields? Right here, cars parked, jam, bottles, beer, wine, drugs. I think it was all here, yes. And there's the speedway over there. I'm on the main road that you always tried to get out, and down there's where you always wanted to get out, but there was rows of people parked along them bushes over there. People jamming to get inside where? Where? You guessed it, Hollywood Sportatorium. The performer's hell. There's the famous box office right there, yes, and there's the canal where we push the car and turn cars around, and the famous mud pits are right out here to the right, which is actually the north side of the Sportatorium. Remember getting bogged down out there? Hell yeah. A lot of people do, But that's where it all happened, right out there to the right of the Sport. There's the wall we all jumped for the Rush concert.
Schmack, oh my God, my friends. This video is inspired by a book that just came out. And I want to thank my friend Ruben De La Rosa for telling me that somebody wrote a book about the Sportatorium, the greatest venue I've ever been to. And, you know, I'm talking about the glory arena days of the 80s. And I know all of you have those similar stories, how amazing it was to go to shows and you had that one venue you loved so much. Sportatorium was different though. Sportatorium was in the middle of nowhere. It was just woods, miles of woods, and then right in the middle of all these woods was this arena, and there was a little speedway next to it. And what made this even a little more special than your venue, not saying it was better, but it had, well, I am saying it was better because I never experienced your concert going. So I'm going to be biased and say, no, mine was better. But I will say this, what was special about this place, since it was in the middle of nowhere, there was no curfew. No band had to end at a certain time, and they can play as loud as they wanted. And sometimes they would play extra songs. And what I did, this is on Amazon for like $10. You know, it's kind of pamphlet-y. You know, it was a quick read, but it was very enjoyable. And by C. Rich wrote this, and he had there were a couple mistakes in there, but this is going to be. But then again, there was a couple mistakes in here because it was the 80s, man. And if you remember everything of the 80s, you weren't living it right. Now, this is going to be several episodes I'm going to spread out because there's so many stories that I don't want to make a 5-hour video. So what I did was I wrote down, there's a website that shows every show that was at the Sportatorium. And I'm going to talk about every show I was at when I first went there in 1980 and 81. Because I think that's enough stories for now. But it gets crazier then because these stories here, I wasn't taking drugs. I took drugs later. And you know what? Not ashamed of it. I live to tell about it. I don't do it no more, but damn, I had a good time on drugs, especially at the Sportatorium. Now, a couple shout outs. Here's a few shows that were there before I started going to shows. Led Zeppelin played there. Alice Cooper, Grand Funk, Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon was there. Frank Zappa, Focus. Kiss played there in the Destroyer album, and Love Gun, and Dynasty. All of them I didn't go to. Elvis Presley played there. And a really cool story on the Elvis Presley show in this book. Queen and Thin Lizzy. Wow, what a bill. ELO, Boston, AC/DC, Skynyrd. One of Skynyrd's last shows. I think they may have played a show or two after that, before the plane crash. Kansas, Journey, Montrose, and opening band Van Halen. And then I do one thing. Let me go back. Skynyrd, I remember vividly being in the back seat of my parents' car. hearing a commercial for that show, and it said, "Are you a street survivor?" And yeah, and then I do remember that, but when I wanted to go to, the first time I wanted to go to the Sportatorium was Black Sabbath and Van Halen. I begged my parents. Oh no, that's not true. Also Kiss, Love Gun. I told this story before. My brother went to it. I begged my brother, because at this time that was it. I was into Kiss. I begged my brother to take me, and he wouldn't, and my parents wouldn't let him take me. And when he left, I was so bummed, and I went in my room to play my Kiss Alive 8-track, and the bastard took it with him to the show. What a bummer of a night. And I remember wanting to go to Kiss Dynasty as well. My parents wouldn't let me. Now, the first show I saw at the Sportatorium was Heart, with a band called The Heats, which I don't remember at all. It was on that website where I wrote down all these. And it was on May 2nd, the first time I was at the Sportatorium. And I remember I was pretty close to that. I do remember Heart. I don't remember Heats. The next show I went to was June 15th. Nazareth, Blackfoot, and Marseille. I might have to edit this. Because I saw this band called Marseille, and I thought they were awesome. I really did. I'm going to keep talking so I don't have to edit this. That I ran out and bought the Marseille album. Anybody remember this band Marseille? They were like young. I remember they were like very young, and they rocked so badass that I ran out and bought this album, and the album's not that good. I thought they were much better live. But yeah, I should slap this on again. I know I haven't heard it in many, many years, and I remember giving it chances way back then, because I bought that way back then. They were awesome, though. Blackfoot was awesome, and Nazareth, that was the first time I ever saw Pyro, and it was choice. All right, what was the next show? The next show, wow, this was good, and a crazy story behind this. It gets crazier in the other episodes when the drug take-in started, but this was a crazy story. It was Ted Nugent with Pat Travers and the Scorpions. Nobody really knew the Scorpions. I do remember they were playing the Zoo on the radio at the time. It was Animal Magnetism Tour. They were awesome. I remember I was very close for this show. And I was close for Nazareth and Heart as well. And Pat Travers, that was the first time I ever witnessed Tommy Aldridge, the great Tommy Aldridge, do that insane drum solo with playing with his hands. Ted Nugent came out swinging on a rope in a loincloth. And the Scorpions, it was a total killer show. Now here's the crazy part about this show. Went to the show, awesome. My friend Eladio's dad picked us up. We went home. By the time we got home, on the news, full-blown riot at the Sportatorium. We missed it all. We left before it started. There was footage of cars overturning on fire. Crazy, right? I missed that. But on this episode, I will talk about when I was there for a riot. The next show I saw, I won tickets for this. It was Tom Petty and opening act Tommy Two-Tone, 8675309. And man, what a scary experience. And rest in peace, George Royal. He was my buddy, but he was really my brother's best friend. And he had a motorcycle. I won tickets on the radio. George took me to the radio station. Back then, it wasn't will call stuff. You had to go to the radio station and pick up the tickets. I went out on the back of his motorcycle, shitting bricks. And then we went to the show. And he got drunk. I was young and dumb. I didn't get drunk. I was too young. And we drove back. And I was the whole time praying. But that was a good show, man. I believe that was Hard Promises. Good stuff. I love that song, Something Big. And I remember when he played that. Awesome. My favorite Tom Petty song. And it's a deep track. Kind of hard to believe. It should be a huge hit. After that, at the time, because it was Eclipse, but this was my favorite show at this time that I've been to so far. Because actually, before the Sportatorium, I only saw two shows. Cheap Trick with the Rockets and the Cars at the Miami High Line. And yeah, they were both 79. So this was the great, and I had second row seats for this. Van Halen, Women and Children First Tour with the Cats. And I'll never forget that experience, man. Being so close to the greatest live band ever, in my opinion. David Lee Roth came out and his hair was blonde. It didn't look like Dave. He had like brown hair before that. And it was the first time I saw Dave with, bleach blonde hair. And the one thing I'll always remember about that show, well, Eddie being right in front of me doing the intro to Women in Love and doing Eruption, all that stuff I remember. But the biggest thing was toward the end of the show, Dave goes, "You're all going to be on TV." Does anybody out there remember On TV? It was one of those pay channels, On TV, where if you did, it was on channel 51 down here, and if you didn't have On TV, it had scramble lines, and they would show like soft corn at midnight, and I would look at it like a little kid, like staring at it. Now and then I'd see a breast. Ooh, On TV. Well, Dave said, "You're all going to be on TV." And they brought out video cameras, and we all went nuts. We're like, "Oh my God, we're going to be on a video," Have you read David Lee Roth's book? David Lee Roth explains that he did that on every show at on the Women and Children First Tour with the camera, and the cameras had no film in it. Bastard. But man, what a show. But there was a better show coming up. The next show I saw, all right, that's it for 1980. 1981, by the way, there were other shows there. I didn't want to write all the shows I wasn't at. 1981, January 16th, the opening night of the Paradise Theater Tour Styx. And I met Dennis DeYoung, 4 years ago, and I told him. And he remembered. That was opening night. Yes, I remember that show well. And then he told me some Sportatorium stories. And but anyway, that was great. And I believe there was no opening act. I could be wrong. I know the next time I saw Styx, there was no opening act. But that was great. But one thing that did disappoint me about that show, and I know they played it later on the tour, but this was the opening night. They didn't play Snowblind, which is my favorite song. That they did play Halfpenny, Twopenny, which was great. But yeah, they didn't play Snowblind, which I found shocking. I was like, damn, why didn't they play that? But they did play it on the tour. I've seen footage. That was January 16th. Now, I didn't go to the show till August 18th since that. Big gap, man. And I'm wearing the shirt right now. And it's not the shirt I bought. I bought this shirt at the show, but yeah, that show. Shirts back then, man, they were like blow away with the wind. They'd turn into dust. Van Halen Fair Warning Tour. The greatest show I ever saw in my life. Now, when I saw Van Halen on Women Children First, I was second row. For Fair Warning, 1981, I was in the nosebleeds with my brother and Eladio. To this day, I have never seen a show that amazing. I mean, I can't express it in words. All I can say is Van Halen usually started the show and it was all dark with strobe lights everywhere. Will you welcome the mighty Van Halen? And they went into On Fire, but the stage was still dark. And then when it went into and when it hit right after that, the whole stage lit up, and the first thing you see when the stage lights up is like Diamond Dave, like 20 feet in the air with a split, doing a split. It was mind-blowing, and to this day, that's still my favorite Van Halen song, and they were just flooring the audience, man. I mean, we were all going nuts. Between songs, everybody was hitting the plastic chairs, and they were louder than the band many times. When Dave, I'll never forget, like the second song was Sinner Swing, when he goes, "She looks so fucking good." After that, I couldn't hear what was going on because the crowd was like, ah. It was a different world back then. You say the F word on stage, it was badass. One thing I forgot about the Women and Children First tour, somebody threw a joint up on stage. Dave picked it up, lit it up, smoked. Damn good reefer Florida. We were like, wow. And back then, I wasn't smoking pot yet, but I still thought it was great. But then again, I was also a huge fan of Cheech and Chong. It's amazing I never smoked pot that young. Because in the 70s, I was a fanatic. I owned all the Cheech and Chong albums. Up in Smoke is still like my favorite, well, that and Blues Brothers are my favorite comedies of all time. But anyway, it was just mind-blowing to see Dave smoke a doob on stage. Badass. All right, yeah, and the opening act for the Women and Children First tour was the Cats. They were horrible. And this one, it was a band called Z Cars. And I shit you not, this band was so bad. And get this, they didn't have a guitar player. They did not have a guitar player. It was drums, keyboards, and bass. That was it. Van Halen purposely brought horrible bands out on tour when I saw them back then. I mean, with Dave, up to 84. They were all lame bands. And I will talk about those in later episodes because we're winding down here with 3 more shows after this. But yeah, greatest show ever. Dave, greatest frontman ever. Greatest band. Hands down, nobody can touch Van Halen. Nobody to this day. Not even Van Halen. I saw later, Daily Raw shows, which were fine, great, cool to see, but no, it lacked the magic of, with Michael on stage. Unbelievable. All right. September 6th. I won tickets to this one too. And I remember when I won tickets to this, they also gave me a shirt. It was yellow. And it said ZZ Top live at the Hollywood Sportatorium. I wish I still had that shirt. ZZ Top. I won tickets to that. They didn't have an opening act on the website. I don't know if it was a night with ZZ Top. I'm not sure. But the one thing vividly I remember about that show was when they played Cheap Sunglasses and the part where it goes, the stage had this laser that just went like that, like lit up the stage behind them. It was so badass. And it does it a couple times during the song, so every time they did it, yeah, I got to see ZZ Top, and that was the El Loco tour. Awesome. All right, down to the last 2. Now this one's very special. Blue Oyster Cult and Foghat. Now what's special about this was MTV was there, and they filmed it, and they broadcast those 2 shows, the full Foghat set and the full, it was Fire of Unknown Origins, and I'm not sure which Foghat album it was, 1981, but yeah, I have it. A shout out to, I don't know if he's watching. I know he watches my channel here and there. His name is Tony Dio. He's a massively awesome dude, and he had it. He burned me copies, so now I own them. But I do remember it watching back then, and also there was tell me if you remember this show. There was a show on regular TV called the Blue Jean Network, and I believe they had a radio show too. They showed the Blue Oyster Cult show on that too. Awesome, and you can see some of it here on YouTube. Type in, Sportatorium, Hollywood Sportatorium, Blue Oyster Cult. I was there. The last show, and this is, November 8th, it's the last show of 81, and just so happens to be the most craziest thing that ever happened to me at a show, as far as like violent. Rush, Moving Pictures Tour. My God. The night I almost died was Neil Peart was late to the show. He was, as I understand, in the Bahamas. The plane was late or whatever. I think they brought him in on a charter thing to get there quick. But people were getting restless at the gates. And they started, it started getting crazy. And I saw a guy hit a cop, a police officer, with a 2x4. Because there was these walls and they were up there and some long-haired dude just whack. And now, mind you, I'm with hundreds of people, thousands of people surrounding me. I'm at the gate, Cops brought out tear gas and shot it right into us. And I whiffed that, and everybody's running, and I fall. And I'm literally getting trampled. And my friend Claude grabbed my arm and saved my life. I wouldn't be telling you the story right now if it wasn't for Claude. Because seriously, I did get... Didn't have no broken bones or nothing because I drank a lot of milk back then. Quick side note. I had an ice cream truck run over my foot. And when I went to the hospital, because my foot was this big, and I was a little kid, the doctor took x-rays and stuff, and he said, you must drink a lot of milk because none of your bones are broken. None of those little bones in your foot. But anyway, back to Rush. I'll never forget the feeling of inhaling. It's like inhaling fire. Tear gas. And it was horrible, man. And we all dispersed into, far from the tear gas. Right? Well, they finally opened the gates. We all went in. I'm amazed they didn't cancel the show with all the melee going on. We all went into the show, and I remember my friend stole a bunch of tour books, and I still have my Rush Moving Pictures tour book that he gave me that night. And I bought, I don't have it no more, but it was a long sleeve gray with the album cover on it. But here's the ironic part. The opening act that night was Riot. Yes, Riot opened this show that there was a riot going on. Fire Down Under tour. Now, this was the second time I saw Riot. And at this point, I was very well aware Riot. I owned Fire Down Under. I was as excited to see them as Rush. Because I was a huge fan of both at the time. Where I saw Riot before open for Black Sabbath on the Heaven and Hell tour. Where it was Narita. And I didn't know who Riot was. And after that show, I had to get Narita. And, I had Rock City by this point. I had all 3 Riot albums at this point. And they were awesome. I'll never forget them playing my favorite song, Outlaw. And they played Road Racing and Swords and Tequila. Ultra the King. Amazing. Rest in peace, Guy. And Rhett. I mean, Rhett died too, but I never saw Rhett. Guy Speranza and Mark Reale. A shame they're all gone. Yes, that's it for now, because starting in 80, it's either, I don't know, I'll have to look at the shows to find out when I started drinking a lot of Jack Daniels. You'll hear stories of me being put in a drunk tank, having sex during one of the shows with a complete stranger. It was a girl, by the way. I know some of you are thinking, a complete stranger? Was it a guy? Yeah, I know, because you're fancy pants. But I appreciate you fancy pants, and I appreciate all you heterosexuals out there that are still watching. I really do appreciate your support and your love for my channel, and I hope you're subscribed. If you haven't subscribed, please do so, and please like this video and ring the notification bell. I would really appreciate that. And if you like to donate, I got a PayPal in the description below. So till next time, when I get more into the Sporto, great stories I have about this place. Amazing stories. You think this? I mean, other than that Rush show, this shit's Disneyland. What's about to happening? So stay tuned for part 2, and there'll be a part 2, 3, I don't know, because they closed in 88, so there'll be several episodes. So, stay frosty, listen to Black Sabbath, and smack 'em a gubba.